Tom, we got a bit of I think it's fair to say a surprise today in learning that Simon Jolin Barrette had decided not to run to succeed François Legault as premier, at least for a while.
I was
convinced
he was going to go for it. Yeah, I was absolutely convinced he was going to go for it. And in fact, on Tuesday I was in studio with a colleague who's well connected to the CAQ. And she kept saying, no. The feedback I'm getting is that on the home front, this thing ain't selling. So I said, come on, he can't not go. Because, Aaron, imagine like a very large merry-go-round that's turning very, very slowly. And it only gets to the gate once every 10 years, because that's, the leadership cycle of being in government and getting reelected. And who knows if the CAQ's even going to exist in 10 years. So Simon Jolin Barrette is a guy full of ambition, and I was absolutely convinced he was going to go. But he put it down very straight for personal and family reasons. He's got young kids, and a little bit like André Fortin, who declined to, who would have been an outstanding candidate to lead the Quebec Libs, just saying, no, ain't going to do it. So good on him on that level. But now that leaves, of course, the only clear candidate, because she's already announcing that she's going to announce on Sunday from Trois-Rivières, is Christine Fréchette, of course, the economy minister, and she's an energy, and she's an outstanding candidate. And the inimitable Bernard Drinville, who has bounced around from pillar to post, from PQ to CAQ to whatever. So we'll see how that works out for him. If I had to bet a quarter, I would bet on Madame Fréchette in this one.
But if you had to bet, would you bet that Drinville will run?
Well, I can't imagine that this party is going to have a coronation. I just can't imagine it. There's going to have to be somebody to run against her to keep the whole thing honest, to make sure that ideas get batted around. Now, what is interesting is that earlier this week, on Wednesday, we had François Legault talk to the media for the first time and start saying, well, these are the two things that are important in this campaign: the economy and saving French in Montreal. And I've looked at the possible candidates, and they all agree that those are the two most important things. And so going, hey, buddy, you're supposed to be on your way out. That earned him, by the way, a great caricature in the Presse newspaper, getting dressed up as a mother-in-law. Because it's indecent for him to be sticking his nose in the race to succeed him. But there's going to be other stuff that's going to be tricky, too, because now that Simon Jolin Barrette is saying that he's sticking around, he's got a couple of pieces of legislation, including the Quebec Constitution, that he's going to try to get passed. And how does that work? You're in the middle of a leadership race. You've got people defining what the party should do as major policy. And Simon Jolin Barrette is going to be if you've ever taken a look at this Constitution, it's absolutely bonkers. You're saying, for example, that the English school boards wouldn't be allowed to use public money to defend themselves against attacks by the Quebec government, because anything that the Quebec government does by law would become shielded, like Superman's shield, from contestation, because you'd have this new patente that they would put together, which would be a constitutional council, mostly made up of like-minded people to the CAQ, and they would sit down and say, no, you're not allowed to contest this, or no, this law is fine. Oh, we've declared this law to be in the best interest of Quebec, you're not allowed to contest it. So this is the banana republic stuff that they were planning to put forward. Are they still going to do that in the middle of their leadership race? Stay tuned. You'll hear about it here on CJAD.
You don't think that might have been the ulterior motive for Simon Jolin Barrette not to run, so he could go ahead and pass this Quebec Constitution?
It absolutely had to be part of his thinking. I don't think it was the deciding motive. I honestly, you hear so often in politics people citing family and personal reasons. I 100% believe that family reasons were the dominant issue here for him.
Okay. I should let you know, about an hour or so ago, Donald Trump posted. So
yes,
did you read this?
I saw it.
Okay, so let me read this for the folks. It says, Canada, this is from his Truth Social post, Canada is against the Golden Dome being built over Greenland, even though the Golden Dome would protect Canada. Instead, they voted in favor of doing business with China, who will, quote, eat them up, unquote, within the first year.
Well, first of all, I invite everybody listening to us who is handy with the internet to go online and find a picture. You know how Donald Trump loves to have something staged for him, and he loves to have not just something digital. He likes to have a nice big cardboard picture to show people. When he announced the Golden Dome, several of us were giggling ourselves silly because you have these golden lines that are supposed to be missiles coming up and then going down from Russia to the States and back up and getting shot down over Canada, of course. But if you look at it, you're going to have a good laugh because we were calling it the golden comb over. It looked like Donald Trump's sparse hair being, golden hair going back and forth. With regard to the Golden Dome being over Greenland, I again invite people to go back to see this thing. It had everything to do with Canada and the United States, not that much to do with Greenland. So this is Trump's temporal lobe still playing tricks on him. And I don't know. I think the guy's still an unbelievably bad mood because Mark Carney gave one of the best political speeches of any world leader in the past 10 years. And Trump had just mumbled for an hour and 45 on Tuesday and then gave a totally discombobulated speech when he got to Davos. So I think there's a little bit of speech envy involved here.
Speech envy. That's good. I'm going to remember that. Listen, the other thing I want to mention here as well for people who don't know, Donald Trump yesterday, he's so angry, I guess, at Mark Carney, Tom, he rescinded Canada's invitation to join his Board of Peace for $1 billion and is saying, look, that's what you get for, doing business with China, I guess.
I know. And we could have been sitting beside Uzbekistan in this very important thing called the Peace Panel. Look, this is Donald Trump. Again, he can't control the United Nations, so he's going to have his own. But since he can't pay for it with U.S. taxpayers' money, he's going to have an entrance fee of $1 billion. It's mind-boggling because you have to look at the list of the 19 countries involved. This is not the A-list, okay? Yeah. This is really, these are countries that he would have used an unrepeatable qualification to define not that long ago. But these are his new besties, and he's going to sit them around a table, don't you know? And everything's going to be fine because they'll take care of the New World Order.
Yeah. So I saw the picture, I guess the photo op that they took, and when you talk about not the A-list, what would be the rationale for countries going ahead and saying, yeah, we want to be part of this, just to appease Trump? I mean, what's the rationale here?
Well, sure, but I mean, look at that list of countries. Who even, who's ever been there? Who deals with them? Again, these are countries that you're sort of scratching your head saying, how could they possibly decide anything to do with the rest of the world? Look at some of them are absolute basket cases, and so they're unbelievably flattered to have been invited literally onto a world stage to be with the President of the United States and say, "Aren't we amazing?"
So Mongolia, I guess, is really happy to be part of this because we don't hear a lot about Mongolia more often.
Well, I invite people to look at the list because there are a bunch of names that were floated. Like, for example, Trump had on his list, he had the Kingdom of Belgium. Well, guess what? They absolutely never accepted to be in this thing. And then they blew a head gasket when they saw it. So now if you look at there are only 19 who are actually part of it. And I think this is the kindest thing he could have done to Mark Carney because that way Carney doesn't have to say, get stuffed,
Okay, fair enough. I didn't mean to insult the people of Paraguay, apparently, who are also part of the Board of Peace.
Okay.
Let me go to one other situation here with respect to, and I want to ask you what you thought. Yesterday's speech from Mark Carney, we carried this for the most part. I don't think it's in its entirety, although we did post it up on our website. What did you make of that? I mean, was it really necessary for a history lesson here? And what was the message he was sending, Tom, as far as you're concerned? He obviously the symbolism, doing this at the Citadel. What was he trying to do, and did he achieve what he was trying to do in your opinion?
He was trying to answer his critics who for a year have been saying, buddy, you don't seem to care one bit about Canadian unity, and it's staring you in the face because the PQ is high in the polls and they could form the next government and have another referendum. And where are you on these core issues? You and I live here in Quebec. We've been through both referenda. We know what this stuff is about, but it was so reassuring to hear that sterling speech, because everybody talks about the Davos speech, which was amazing. But as a Canadian and a Quebecer, what I heard from my Prime Minister yesterday was so reassuring. It was, we've got a proud history together. Yes, it started here with a battle where both generals died. And then instead of taking over and removing language and changing religion, we had a way of working together for over 250 years. And we should be proud of it. And I think that it was a message that went through to a heck of a lot of people. And when he went after that notion of religion, saying, this is a great country, we're open, we're respectful of others, we respect the fact that everybody's allowed to have their own religion, I heard in that sentence a direct reference to Bill 21. he's basically laying down some markers, in my view, Aaron, saying that he's not afraid to take on the PQ and their worldview. And, Simon Jolin Barrette is the person who pushed through Bill 21, but Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the head of the Parti québécois, has been pushing for even more stringent rules against minorities on religious issues. Well, he went ballistic yesterday. The speech wasn't even over, and he was already tweeting out breathlessly how awful this was, and it was an affront and so forth.
Yeah.
Good. Engage. Because nobody's been taking these guys on, and Carney's saying and signaling that he's ready for this battle. So it was super refreshing, but especially his high road, optimistic, proud definition of what Canada is all about. I think we should all go back and make sure that we hear that speech because it was amazing.
Tom, thank you so much. You have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
You too.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.